It is TexAgs Rewind. David Nuno and Billy Liucci here in studio. We got a king as our starting
Nuno,
quarterback.
you want to correct my form drinking this water?
I actually read it this morning how you were critiquing my critiques of former staff members who I fixed their form at the gym.
Yeah.
And that former staff member was all about the fix. Yes, I need to know how to do it correctly. I'm doing a service, Billy. That's all you're going to say?
You're a public servant, David, not a radio host.
Hey, would you wear gloves if you play golf?
No.
Dalton was the other day.
Interesting.
He was wearing gloves, and he makes fun of me for wearing gloves. I'm just saying.
It's interesting.
So on the show today, OB talked about Haynes King being the quarterback. Billy, you've talked a lot about it, but he's the guy.
Yeah. Not shocking, but certainly not a given. It was not a foregone conclusion, and Max Johnson and Connor Wigman made that thing pretty damn interesting, and I think Jimbo wanted to. I think his plan all along was to let it play out as long as he could. He knows exactly how much time his starter is going to need in order to be ready for game one, in terms of with the ones, as they say. And I think the decision, I'm trying to think of the exact day. I think Thursday, maybe the quarterbacks were told. Maybe it was Wednesday. Wednesday or Thursday, the QBs were informed, and it's Haynes, and he's got to go out now and perform, and I think he will, man. I think there's a lot of talent around him. I've said over the course of the month or so, I think people are sleeping on Haynes as a QB because they've just had such a limited body of work, and people that see like a couple of practice scrimmages don't understand like what Jimbo's going to set up because of Haynes' running ability and what he can do with play action off of that, and what Haynes can do given a larger body of work to scramble around and make things happen, and the runner that he is. And he's really improved as a thrower, David. If he hadn't, I don't think he'd have won this job.
All right, well, we talked about that, obviously. We had Chad Withrow of Outkick 360.
Oh
Excellent stuff.
Chad's
yeah, he was
great.
Good. Tom Hart, ESPN and SEC Network.
Tom's also
your guy.
pretty great.
He's very good. He's got Tennessee this weekend and Alabama Thursday, Saturday. And, of course, this guy gave us week one thoughts. Is TexAgs Rewind. Not surprising anybody, at least internally, but I feel like outside of this bubble, some people were a little surprised.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would be surprised that Haynes King was named the starter. I really don't. As far as the Max Johnson thing, he hasn't been. I know his father was an NFL quarterback. I know he started a lot of games at LSU. But again, if we're to believe that the system is so complicated, Jimbo Fisher's system complicated, then it would make sense that the guy who's been in that system 3 years would have the edge. Plus, twice, once he was picked as the number 2 quarterback to Kellen Mond. Last year he was picked as the starter. And then as Connor Wigman, as talented as he is, the fact is rarely does a true freshman start and play well in college football, especially when you're playing in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a situation where he gets his chance later this year, but I think that would be more than likely that would not be good for A&M this year. Now, that doesn't mean that because Trevor Lawrence took over and things were going well, but they felt to win a championship, they needed him to be the guy.
Right. Plus, Trevor Lawrence is to say, well, then so-and-so, whoever should be. Then you're saying, well, so Trevor Lawrence wasn't a special player. Johnny Manziel, I could go down the list, and it's a long list of guys that either redshirted or waited a year, and it was beneficial to them.
Let's not forget Bryce Young waited.
And
this was after
Jameis Winston waited.
Mac Jones didn't have a great year the year prior to his amazing year, right? Like, didn't he struggle a tad bit?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so I could understand.
Joe Burrow didn't play at Ohio State. So the list just goes on and on that it's beneficial more often than not for a true freshman to wait and learn.
Well, let's talk about why we're excited about Haynes King. And I think it starts off with the way you can attack teams. When you have a quarterback who's got the speed of this quarterback, who can make the throws, and also the guy's just a freaking winner, and that matters to me. A guy who knows how to win, who has won at the high school level, a guy who's got the legs, can make the throws, that excites me for what they can look like.
Well, I used to get really frustrated with Kellen Mond running the zone read. I'd sit next to Gabe Bach and we'd be like, what is he not seeing? And he would hand off and you'd see that end crashing down and he would keep handing off. And there was plays there for a quarterback to keep it and go and make big plays.
Haynes King being named the starter. Very limited film out there in college football, at least, just the Kent State game and a little bit against Colorado. Your thoughts on Haynes getting the start for A&M?
Well, it shows that Jimbo Fisher believes in him, that he was a starter a year ago before injury. And that really has been one of the big mysteries with all the great things Jimbo Fisher has done in terms of acquiring talent, bringing in talent to Texas A&M. He's known as a quarterback guy. And it could have been because of injury a year ago, but he hasn't really nailed down the quarterback to take Texas A&M to the next level yet. Maybe it's Haynes King. We don't know. It certainly wasn't Zach Calzada. And I was actually in the stadium last year for the win over Alabama. You know, that was a one-off type performance, I think, for Calzada. He was great in that second half. But as the season went on, it showed this guy really isn't special and is not going to take A&M to the next level. Maybe it's Haynes King. Maybe it's eventually going to be the five-star freshman there. But it shows a belief in Jimbo Fisher. I would be a little bit concerned that it took this long to get to this decision. And look, maybe Jimbo Fisher knew earlier that he was going to go with Haynes King, but just waited until now to announce it. But either way, I'm excited to watch to see how they develop at the quarterback position, because you look at every other spot for A&M right now, and you guys know this all too well. There's not a lot of question marks in terms of talent and depth. So if they get quarterback right, that team is going to be very right this season.
I want you to picture the scenario in Dublin, but in an SEC stadium, right? Free beer, whatever, concessions. Just come on in. How would that play out?
Well, I kind of saw it a couple of years ago. And Vandy, this is pre-pandemic, started selling beer for the first time. And LSU was their first opponent. That was the national championship year of 19 for LSU. And, of course, LSU fans overtook the stadium. LSU drank so much beer, the Miller Lite had to pull a truck up to the other side, the east side, had to pull a truck up to the east side stands before the end of the first half to replenish all the beer. They had already drank that side of the stadium out of their beer. So, yeah, Nebraska fans can put it down. Wisconsin fans can put it down. But nobody does it like LSU. LSU drank all the beer out of the Carrier Dome like 7 years ago when they went to Syracuse. I mean, they would do some real damage. I don't know if Guinness is their speed, but they'd figure it out. That was quite a scene. I think it's pretty cool that college football plays those international games. My daughter sat down and watching the game Saturday, and she couldn't fathom, like, why are they going all the way to Ireland to play a game? But it's a great week zero scenario. And I just, unless you're a Nebraska fan, it was a pretty good way to start the season.
So somebody texted in the show and I answered, but I'm going to let you answer. Was this year's quarterback battle? And I think I know the answer. Closer than last year's.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think so. I know so. Like, Zach had a good camp last year. But Zach had a better camp than expected last year, and it was credit to him. But throughout that thing, I don't know that I ever talked to anyone inside or sources or people at practice that would have said, yeah, Zach's going to start. So it's different. Like, you credit Calzada, and that's what we try to do through camp. And you're not going to give away who's going to win the starting job before it's won. It doesn't – people want that, and people want that on message boards. Like, if I thought that Jimbo Fisher had named Haynes King the starting quarterback last summer, a week into camp, and I missed that story because Jimbo said it on with our buddy Granado and them on the radio. If he would have done that 2 weeks earlier and it was just that one side and that was the deal, we would have said it. He didn't name it until it was August 25th last year. I know people want to know and say, hey, but you don't throw a quarterback under the bus and publicly say, yeah, it's not even close. It's going to be this. It was a good battle because Zach outplayed, I think, what people thought he was going to. From the spring to the summer, from the spring to August, he really, because I thought going in, Haynes is going to win that job. Zach played well in August, but no one that I talked to said I think Calzada's going to start. This summer, entering camp, and then even, depending on the day, you might hear, man, Wigman looked incredible. He's looked incredible for 3 days, or man, right from the start, there are certain things he does better. Max Johnson, like when I told you they had that amazing Thursday practice a couple weeks ago, Max was on fire. Like Max was just dealing. Like that was the best Max Johnson. Then he followed that up where he had a pretty good scrimmage as well. So he looked like he was hitting so it was never like, okay, this is done, ain't anything else happening. But just over the course of it, Haynes King, it was pretty obvious to me, his name kept kind of coming up the most in terms of the consistency. I say the limiting turnovers. That defense created a lot of turnovers. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that is, I think it's something to watch for two reasons. I think we saw DJ Durkin's defense force a couple of key turnovers in the fourth quarter for Ole Miss against A&M last year. We saw them force a ton throughout the season. I think that's a lot more to it, but it will be worth watching to say, all right, Haynes is going to have to protect the football. And I think, was he flawless during camp in terms of protecting the ball? No. But I think more so than Max, and that could have been a tipping point as well.
Don't you want your quarterback sometimes to take some chances?
Yeah,
they
need to. It doesn't come without it. And look, and same with Max. Max threw 6 interceptions last year, but there wasn't that offense, that LSU offense, and they just, like in this one, I want to see those guys rip it and cut loose, and we want the offense to open up and throw down the field more. And with that, it's not just like, hey, Evan Stewart, go deep. Let's just throw you a deep ball down the sideline for a touch. I mean, look, I'd love it to look like Joe Burrow and Chase and Jefferson, or Tua and all those Bama receivers, Ruggs and Smith and Waddle and Judy. Like, look, maybe one day they'll get there. Maybe it's Evan Stewart, Chris Marshall, and Noah Thomas someday, and they're just zipping down the field, and you just can't run with them. God knows what that would do for Jimbo's running game.
I've noticed every time we end a TexAgs segment, rewind, you do some kind of noise with your mouth. Have you noticed that? Not paying attention at all. Not paying. There you go. You do that. You do some kind of noise at the end of it.
Or like
You do. You know what to do. Like, comment.
Look out! Oh, I thought we weren't on air.
No, we were totally on air.
Oh,
that
I'm
whole
over
thing
here
is on
texting. I thought we weren't even.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
By the way, that time I moved. The medicine ball, I didn't move. There was no movement on the medicine ball. Just watch the show, like it, comment.
I thought we were done. I'm getting up. Like the show, follow.
And comment. Goodbye.